Hey everybody, this is Cameron in the edit. Just wanted to give you a warning that there is a discussion of suicide later on in the episode toward the end, and it gets depicted on screen. It's not particularly graphic or anything like that. It's in the graphics of Disco Elysium, but just wanted to let you know that that's coming up. Thanks so much for watching the show, and I'll let you get right to it. Welcome back to Mages and Murderdads. This is episode 72. We're playing...
Nice.
Get it in there.
Nice. 72.
Wow. I'm Cameron.
I'm Danny.
Taking a big old sip of juice over there. What you doing?
I made the coffee, and I wanted to get a nice big sip in before we haul off into a fantasy realm.
We're playing Disco Elysium.
It's a fantasy realm.
Is it a fantasy realm?
So that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that has been posed throughout the years. When is it genre fiction?
It's absolutely genre fiction. It doesn't take place in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the genre markers of things that are not like either socialist realism or the bourgeois realist novel. So
okay.
It is genre fiction by definition.
Are you sure it's genre fiction and not, as Kazuo Ishiguro might say, literature? Might just be literature.
There's no capital L literature. That's fake.
Well, Nobel Prize winning British writer.
Nobel Prize winning buffoon Kazuo Ishiguro is incorrect on this one, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Take that to the bank.
Fair enough. Do you want me to tell you what's happened in Disco Elysium since we started this series?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we're figuring out stuff that happened before we started playing. We are a cop that lost their memory. We find out our name is Harry Dubois. We have a little bit of assistance, and sometimes a lot of bit of assistance from our co-detective Kim Kitsuragi. We are trying to figure out who killed the hanged man. There was a man that was hanged. We found out he didn't die from hanging. He died from getting shot, and we got to this point in slightly different ways. But the big headline right now is we're trying to find this character named Ruby, who is the head of the Hardy Boys, and not the crime-solving Hardy Boys. They're the crime-causing Hardy Boys, if you ask me.
What do you think about there being a Hardy Boys reference
in this game?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Do you think it's where on the scale of like surprising references do you put that relative to Billie Jean?
Ooh. I think they might be... Well, I think it's less surprising because they are crime solvers.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just not as good at it as we are.
Sure.
But they are crime solvers. They are trying to figure out what's up.
The Hardy Boys from the children's book series or the Hardy Boys in this game?
Well, I guess both are accurate in that I think the Hardy Boys in the fictional book series are not as good of crime solvers as I am in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Because they aren't real. So I think that's true. But also the Hardy Boys in the game are not as good as the Harry Dubois.
I like the logic on your first statement because it also implies that you have bigger teeth than like a pink polka dotted elephant does because you exist.
Yeah.
So basically, like whatever characteristics an imaginary entity has.
Correct.
You have more of them.
I am richer than Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Because Batman doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stronger than Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Because Superman does not exist. I am...
More racist than Namor.
Because Namor doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's... you know what? Ironclad logic.
Yeah.
To be frank.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, everything that doesn't exist... its ability to do a thing is zero.
Yeah, so it's kind of like of the soundboard of properties. Oh God, we're getting some real analytic philosophy now. Of like a giant soundboard of all the properties one could have, right?
Yeah, famously, much like the trolley problem, the giant soundboard is a regular feature of analytic philosophy. We all know that. But of applied ethics, of course. We all know, we don't even need to go into the background of that.
There's one little knob that says, polka dottedness. And you can crank that sucker up, or you can crank it down. So zero is like no polka dots whatsoever.
Yep.
All the way up.
Yep.
You really get there. But there's an on-off switch up in the corner of the soundboard. And when that is off, all the properties are set to 0.
Yeah. That's exactly how it is.
There you go. I feel like we figured something out. Or you want to call it for the day?
Yeah, I think we're good. Good app. Is that all that's happened so far?
Yeah, we're on the other side of the island. We're trying to track down Ruby. That's literally what's happened in this game. We have yet to reach the episode where something happens.
You keep asserting that, but things have happened.
No, okay. So they're kind of
we met a dice maker, and the dice maker made something.
Sure,
that happened in the progression
that's not in the main
time.
quest. That's not in the main quest. In the main quest, yes, things happen, but I'm trying to draw a distinction between there are certain acts in this game which are acts of discovery.
Yes.
Of a phenomena that has happened in the past, right? It's like, oh, we found out that this happened. So up until this point...
Some sort of Jonathan Franzen.
Yeah.
Just illuminating the shit out of stuff. Okay.
Up until this point, you can tell the entire story in this game, like in terms of the meat and bones of the main quest.
Yep.
And the story ends well before the protagonist, Harry Dubois, wakes up in his tighty-whities in the hotel room.
Well, can I ask you a question then?
Sure.
Is every Sherlock Holmes story about nothing happening? Was it the original show about nothing?
It was the original Seinfeld, absolutely.
Because nothing ever happens in Sherlock Holmes. It's all about figuring out what happened beforehand. So by your logic here, you're suggesting that nothing has ever happened in a Sherlock Holmes story, other than Sherlock Holmes being tackled off that waterfall when he died.
Yes, that was the one. The
one. So all of the Sherlock Holmes stories are a prelude to him being tackled off that waterfall, which did happen in real time and ended the stories of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, that's the one thing that happened. You would do the episode recap and be like, nothing's happened yet. He's found out some stuff. That's why, like, in academia, it's just a bunch of doing nothing.
Do you think that we only do historical research?
Until there's a scandal.
Some sort of Sokol hoax. Nothing happens in academia until the Sokol hoax. And that's because someone had to invent ideas in real time.
Yeah, until there's like just absolute fraud.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of absolute frauds, I don't have a good... This is not a good... well, no, it kind of is. There's a little bit of fraud going on here. So we've got one more, I would say, big side quest.
I would say this is one of the more... I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'll put my cards on the table. I found this side quest probably the most interesting one in the game. Where are you on it?
I agree. I think it's interesting. I think it does a lot of cool, even though we have not said what it is. It does a lot of cool stuff, and it loops in a lot of cool stuff that we've already talked about, which is good.
Yeah.
I ran into a wall with this one.
Ooh.
Kind of like the quest we talked about last time, the cryptid quest, where I was not able to complete it. And I was not able to complete it to such an extent that I thought that I had kind of soft-locked myself into the middle of this game without being able to complete it.
Wow.
And I'll talk about that when we get there, but I want to give a little prelude that that you can, and I actually found multiple people online, because I was trying to solve my problem, so I started Googling around, like, oh shit, can I actually complete the game? And it seems like you can actually put yourself in a place in this video game where you cannot complete it due to having a number of white checks that you have not completed. and then not having the ability to like go and level up to then unlock a white check.
So basically, the statistical anomaly of failing enough and yet not having enough experience to unlock the failures to try again.
Exactly. And so you would have to presumably back up a save. You know, and the game does a pretty good job of auto-saving regularly, so that wouldn't be a problem, but you would lose. Like, I would have lost an hour and a half of, progress.
Which, in this game, I have found, like, losing 20 minutes hurts way more than losing 20 minutes in, like, Baldur's Gate, for some reason.
This is something that I found throughout the game, unfortunately, is I think that this is a game of diminishing returns in the sense of unlocking new information. Meaning that when I played the game the first time, I found it moved on novelty. I think I've said this already somewhere in the show. But it moved on novelty, right? Wow, it's really cool to be exploring all this new stuff and find all these things and all this world building that's here and all of that. On a replay, even with a replay that has some pretty good guide rails on it, right? That keeps me doing a pretty particular kind of thing, and you're doing your own pretty particular kind of thing. Even with those guide rails on, I find myself like having to trudge through some conversations, especially in this last third of the game that has a lot less flexibility in it as far as the pathways that you have to take. I agree with you. This quest that we're about to talk about is one of the better ones in the game. It's also one of the most linear, if not the most linear, in the sense of there's really just one path through it.
Yes.
And there's not even a variety, as far as I could tell, and I could be wrong, but a variety of skills and methods you could use to get through some of the challenges, which is actually my exact problem, which got me locked up. So before we prelude any more of that, tell me about how you got this going.
So there's one big area in the game that is, as of yet, kind of unexplored. And for us, that is the large church that kind of dominates the northern half of the kind of western part of the map. And when I initiated it by kind of going up to the door, and it was padlocked, and the padlock had a sticker on it that was like a little smiley face, but with X's for eyes. And I talked to Kim about this. I was like, what does this look like to you, Kim? And Kim says, oh, that looks like a smiling dead man. And I was like, that's what it looks like to me, too. What does it mean? And Kim's like, looks like juvenile delinquency. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, this was covered in your exams, but I'm going to tell you because that's my purpose in this game. That is, when kids do crime, it's not crime. It's delinquency. We kind of treat it differently. So very much kind of like a real world answer to that question, which is more or less how it's supposed to work in scare quotes. And we hear like some thumping bass just south of here. And we can go like take a little circuitous route across some ice flows. And we see a little encampment that more or less, I peel off the sticker and put it on my cop ledger, put it right on the cover.
You put the symbol on the cover?
Yeah, the little sticker of the smiley face.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I peel it off and kind of personalize it. I completed a secret task of to kind of kit out my ledger. So that's fun. Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Is that more or less how you got introduced to this ragtag group?
No, I was just walking around and I discovered a seal or a cell.
Oh, yeah. There, a cell is, she's got some like recording equipment. And when you talk to her, she basically tells you, yeah, I'm like doing some experimental recording of what I think is the ice cracking, but she doesn't have headphones on. And I'm able to talk to her, and she says, yeah, there's some other people here. I more or less kind of like talked with her and beelined it to the tent. But I think before I left, I did notice that she looked really cold, and I gave her my hat.
This is very funny because I had an extremely long conversation with this character.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I had a little orange like beanie cap on, and I gave it to her.
I had my FAL cap on.
Oh,
FALN.
no.
Yeah,
you gave
which is
her
like
the FALN.
Yeah, which is a good hat. But no, so I have this conversation with her, and it's like she looks cold, and I walk up to her and was like, "Hey, you should wear a hat." And she says, she said something, and I was like, "Well, you should really think about wearing a hat." And she says, "Fuck the hat." And I was able to have an authority check.
Whoa.
That I then failed. And so I was like, so you know, I am not able to establish authority, and so that makes me double down. So I was like, fuck the hat. Fuck the hat? You're telling me to fuck the hat?
Oh,
and like
God.
I'm getting more and more angry, and like all of these are separate dialogue options that I'm clicking through one by one. But it gets really funny because he's like, or the dialogue is like, you're telling me to fuck the hat right here on the sea ice? You want me to fuck this hat on sea ice? And so like he just keeps doubling down, and I have the option to continue yelling that or to puff out my cheeks, and I don't puff out my cheeks. I just keep yelling about fucking the hat on the sea ice and about the end of days. And somewhere around right here, I am able to trigger Apocalypse Cop.
Oh, God.
And so I do have a Coppa type now, and it's Apocalypse Cop, just letting you know. But anyway,
do you end up fucking the hat?
No, I didn't fuck the hat because well, I yelled so much that I started crying.
This is what the occasionally there will be failures that just really result in like a catastrophic failure, like a real like breakdown.
Yeah. And so yeah, I did. I had like a full on weeping breakdown and began crying, and she also began crying because of how distressing it was.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the conversation, I was like, no, but really seriously, you look cold. You should wear a hat. And I gave her my hat.
Did you take a morale hit during this?
Oh, I think I took a bunch of morale hits over the course of this conversation.
I actually asked, I don't know if I mentioned it in a past episode, but I asked whether or not you fucked the hat because I had an intrusive thought, I think, this episode when I was just walking next to the pawn shop where something caught my eye and my electrochemistry tried to cajole me just into masturbating.
Did you
on the street.
Did you do that?
No, that's the one thing I did not do in accordance with my character, which would have been to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a dialogue option was like, but Kim's here. And the electrochemistry was like, it doesn't matter. And I could not will myself, like as quote unquote unhinged or out there as my character is, I would not do that to Kim. That's
just a bridge too far.
It's one step way too far, and that step's very long.
It's a big, yeah. It's like a lot of little steps, and then like a big, like a leap.
Yeah,
I get it.
But anyway, who knows what kind of content I evaded by doing that, and who knows what kind of content you evaded by not fucking that hat on the ice.
If I had the option to do it, I would have done it, but it was not available to me.
Because obviously, because of the character you're playing, you don't care about Kim at all.
No, not at all. That wouldn't have been the problem there. And I think I was in the, I've kept a very like laconic, flat affect as much as I can, controlling my feelings as much as I can. And the game made it pretty clear that things just got away from me here. And so like I was kind of willing to go down whatever path that it took me. But yeah, so it just made me kind of freak out a little bit. And it's interesting, too, you didn't mention Contact Mike.
Contact Mike? No, I knew that she had a microphone. She had it up against the thing, but it just, all of this AV stuff didn't really appeal to me.
Hold on. Do you know about Contact Mike?
No.
So this is perhaps, I would say that for players of Disco Elysium, and I think just people who know about the game, this is maybe the most legendary piece of writing in the game. I know when the game came out, everyone was like, oh my God, this is very funny. So she has a contact microphone, right? Which is literally it's a mic that it's like a wire,
like surfaces, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you get all this kind of stuff. Check out our completed actual play podcast, Sword Coast Coast to Coast, to hear a lot of contact microphone recordings used as background sounds.
Ooh.
But anyway, so she's using it, and you can have a thought when you're talking to her about it. You can have this thought, and that thought is, oh yeah, but what about Contact Mike, the boxer? And she's like, I don't know who Contact Mike is. And so then you can begin to give her a motivational speech about Contact Mike, the boxer who hits people, and the differences between Contact Mike and a Contact Mike. And you can tell her not to be down on herself because she seems depressed. She says she self-medicates. She says the world's a huge bummer. And I was able to make some empathy checks here too. Anyway, if you don't know, the Contact Mike stuff is very funny because it's you just mistaking a Contact Mike for a man who is named Contact Mike,
who is in the world's fiction real.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a boxer named this.
There's a boxer named this. His poster is in the gym.
Oh, cool.
And you can have a thought catalog thing or a thought cabinet. I keep doing that. A thought cabinet thing that is like the rise and fall of Contact Mike or something like that. But I didn't do that. That seemed like too far beyond what I was interested in. But I was able to have an empathy check initially that allowed me to see, or no, maybe it was an automatic success because she is basically trying to get these recordings, but as you said, she doesn't have headphones, and you find out she doesn't have headphones because her boyfriend pawned them for drugs, presumably. And so she's doing all this recording because she wants to be a musician like these cool dudes, like these avant-garde musicians in jam rock, but she has the equipment to do it, but now she can't even listen to hear what she's doing. So she's kind of like rudderless a little bit. And I had an empathy check that was like talking her up, basically. And I was able to be like, hey, look, this is your ticket. Like, don't get down on yourself. This is very cool what you're doing.
You gave her the motivational speech from Rocky Balboa.
Well, that was the Contact Mike conversation, was like, yeah, you should do that. And then unrelated to that motivational speech, I gave her an additional one that was a little bit more emotive. And then I went and talked to the fellas in the thing.
Which Kim does not follow me because it's too tight of a tent.
Yeah, and that's actually why a cell is out on this ice, is because the tent is too tight, so she doesn't fit.
Wow.
Yeah. Presumably, I guess one of these dudes is her boyfriend. I'm assuming it's Andre. Well, tell us about these tent dudes.
Well, we've got Andre, we have Egghead, and we have let me double check here. Noid. I almost said the Noid, but I think it's just Noid. I think the Noid is like a cartoon character. I'm double checking. It is, yes, it was the advertising character for Domino's Pizza. It looks like a strange rabbit in a superhero costume. It's not that. It's just Noid. Very important. Andre kind of has like some spiky hair. Egghead is yelling all the time about it being hardcore, and Noid is very standoffish. I talk to Andre first and kind of get the lay of the land. Andre basically says that they are experimental musicians, and they've been looking for real estate, and they have some connections in jam rock, but the issue is it's just too expensive to like find a venue there that they can like perform. So that is what has led them here. I noticed like a couple of things in the room. Like I noticed these, some cough medicine. I noticed some like the smell of ether. I noticed distilled water, but I make nothing of it. I'm like, hey, what about these things? And he just shrugs, and I shrug too. And I'm like, yeah, well, got to drink. People have coughs, whatever. And he kind of tells me his problem. This is Andre's big problem. Andre's big problem is that this church is haunted, basically. There is a crab man that's hanging out there that is very scary. And there's also a ghost. So that's like double bad.
Yeah.
Does not know whether these two entities are related, but they're both spooky. They're both scary. So, problem. He characterizes it as, if not supernatural, I think he's more characterizing it as, these are drug addicts in some way.
Yeah, and he has locked them in the church.
Yes. No, he, either he or the Noid, like, put a padlock on there.
Yeah.
And he says that he is 85% sure that they're alive.
Yeah, and I was able to be like, Kim, do you think they know what manslaughter is? and that's when he gave me the 85% number. He was like, yeah, look, 85% sure.
So basically, I ask him, so that's your plan? You wanna get this club? And he's like, yeah, but you've got to take care of these entities, the Crabman, the ghost, i.e. perhaps drug addicts, people that are problematic. And I was like, I'll check it out if you give me a key. He does give me a key. Before I leave, I also interact with Egghead. And Egghead is basically, and when you interact with Egghead at first, it's basically just a little conversation tree puzzle. And it's not even really a puzzle. It's just, I mean, I guess it's a puzzle. The same way like Sudoku might be a puzzle or something. But anyway,
Wow.
he's just...
the sheer weight with which you drop that one off. Oof.
It's numbers. They always add up.
There's one. It's numbers and they always add up.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry if we got some... Look, I mean, it's fun. Passes the time, I guess the same way a conversational tree puzzle does.
Oof. Yeah, Sudoku users, take your word jumble and get out of here.
Oh, I'm sorry, but sometimes you have a second cup of coffee and just start spewing truth over the airwaves. Put a microphone in me, get me a second cup of coffee for the day.
Oof. It's
I
double
understand-
dosing over here.
I understand the rush now. Yeah, so did you solve the Egghead puzzle?
No, I hate talking to this guy and I hate this character. No, I didn't even try. I went through this conversation dialogue one time and then had this muscle memory flashback to the last time I played this game. And I thought, God, I hate this guy. And did not pursue it anymore.
I just kind of brute forced it where I selected the first dialogue option every time until it failed. And then I got to that point and then I did the second dialogue option and went back to the first until I failed, and I just remembered one or two, because there's always one or two options. And it's just him yelling hardcore, and you can either say nothing or repeat it or question it, depending on where you are.
Yep.
And eventually, when you solve it, he comes to the conclusion that the beat that he is listening to is only super hardcore and not ultra hardcore. And that there is just something missing from it. There's an emotional depth missing from it. Luckily, I have this sad-ass tape of, oh gosh, let me get the name of it.
The smallest church in St. Sen.
That's right. It is the smallest church in St. Sen that I have, that I've got on me. And luckily, I am able to just give him that tape to add some emotional depth. I have also, the previous night before, at the beginning of, at the end of the last day, I performed karaoke.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
I was comfortable with handing over the tape because I had already absolutely nailed it. And it wasn't even, it's very strange. I went up there. I have a 1 in intellect. And it is a drama check to do this. I am in a full tracksuit. There's no, I'm getting nothing to my drama ability, right? But I go up there and I have a 3% chance on the drama check, and I succeed. I then, basically, my reptilian brain voice does this Tom Waitsy rendition of The Smallest Church in St. Sins, which is just like maybe 3 stanzas of it concluding that like nothing matters. And there's a little limited applause, and I just go up to Gart and he's like, I rocked the shit out of that.
Yeah, I never tried to do karaoke because I never said I would, and I was not interested in it. Mm-hmm. And so it is interesting that something when I played the game the first time was very important to me. Oh, this is fun. It was not in my role-playing kind of mentality of this playthrough, just not interesting to me. I will say that I think that the reptilian voice version is the worst of the two. I actually like the other version is like the limbic system.
Oh, does the limbic system sing it if you fail?
Yes.
And
I'll also say that both of these are worse than the actual real song that this is.
Oh, interesting. When you say real song, like did they have an artist like record it?
Yeah. I guess we haven't talked about this, but the music for this game is by the band British Sea Power, and almost all of the songs. I actually don't know what percentage it is, but a large chunk of the music that is in this game are just adaptations of previously existing British Sea Power music. So this is a re-editing or a re-lyricizing of their song, "The Smallest Church in Sussex," and then what's the other thing I was going to say? Oh, the Whirling in Rags song that plays like when you leave, that the thing that you are tired of hearing at this point. That is a British Sea Power song too.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sure several other things are too, but those are both very, very recognizable.
Gotcha.
But yeah, well, cool. Yeah, I never went and did karaoke, but how did you clear out this church, or what's the story?
Yeah, so once I had the key, I was able to get in there, and it's very, when you walk in, you get a little thought reaction, like a little orb. And the orb is like, you better walk around here. There's a revenance about the place. There's a lot of heaviness. And there's some cool bowls of water on the ground. And when you stand in the middle of them, sound gets canceled out in some way. And you're suspecting maybe it has to do with the architecture of the church, that you're standing in like a dead zone of some kind. And, Kim gets a little freaked out by that too. And when you walk to the back of the church, I make this perception check to be like, there's something on the ceiling. And when I notice it, the camera zooms out, and there is like a person crawling around up there in the rafters. And this person is named Tiago. And I have a conversation with Tiago.
What did you think about Tiago?
Did you make the perception check?
So you don't have to make the perception check, which is weird.
Oh, interesting. What happens if you don't make the perception check?
So I made the check and failed, and so it zooms out anyway, and then it like blinks and then comes back, and then Tiago is just hanging out there. So I don't really know what the difference is between making and not making as far as like outcome is concerned. Did you see anything at like the top?
Did I see anything at the top?
Yeah, other than dude crawling around.
Yeah, No, I didn't see anything other than the person. I made the perception check, it zoomed out, and then it like transitioned. There might have been even a little screen fade to a new conversation I was having with him. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what the difference between failing and success is there, but yes, I ended up having a conversation with Crabman, Tiago. There's something... this is what happens when you like start compressing people together and start compressing real world ethnicities and accents into...
I was wondering if you were going to mention this. There is something bizarre happening vis-a-vis this game's like depiction of the fictional yet overlaid race / ethnicity of Mesk, or nation perhaps of Mesk.
Yeah.
Because we have already met, I would say probably the standout character in terms of someone who is identified as Mesk that we've met was, I forget the name of the woman, but one of the lorry driver who is kind of like in nostalgia, thinking about back to her, young adulthood or adolescence, and going to the movies, and kind of like there's very much this kind of Civil War Spain vibe that's happening.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when I saw that and I saw Mesk, I was like, oh, I think this game is doing something like with Mesk is spelled with this Q. It looks a little bit like Basque. And I was like, oh, so we're evoking Spain here. That's what Mesk is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. And then we also have Call Me Mañana.
Yes, Call Me Mañana, who also, there's definitely the accent seems very like Spanish Spain, right?
Yeah, he seems like, Spanish civil warrior, but a fighter.
Yeah.
Of that, or, some sort of enforcer that's from there. And Tiago is also Mesk, but his voice is a Southern California Mexican gang member.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the Wikipedia article, which I leaned on last episode, calls this Chicano English.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, completely a real curveball here.
Yeah, I mean, he has all the vocal. I wouldn't even say it's necessarily accent, but it's the vocal affectations, right? Of the way the sentences are put together, and this kind of like, I mean, he sounds like Cheech Marin. If you were to ask me to do a Cheech Marin impression, which I would not do if you asked me to do, but if so, I would come up with something very similar to Tiago.
Yeah, and it's beyond accent. It's also dialect, because he's throwing in Spanish words.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, as he's addressing the character. So I don't know what this is doing. And it really complicates like my understanding of like of what the game is like, because the game's trying to use real world references to kind of fill in some of the gaps and maybe spark your imagination about what characters mean and how they relate to the geopolitics of the world. And that was done pretty successfully with Call Me Mañana and the lorry driver. It like evoked something of the Spanish Civil War, and it kind of like situated those characters somewhere. And I don't know what this character is doing. I think it really complicates my understanding.
Well, it seems like, and I don't, impossible to know intent here, right? We can only talk about what the product in front of us looks like. But to me, Tiago entirely reads like a very common trope, which is like Latino stuff as comedy. Which is like, wouldn't it be funny if this crab man who's crawling around, and we find out a lot of weird and interesting stuff about him, but wouldn't it be funny if he was like a Latino dude, and like that's the joke?
Yeah, because that's the thing, is I think that with the lorry driver, there is a emotional resonance to like attempting to connect the assumptions I have about her accent and her life experiences, and it piggybacks the Spanish Civil War and like meshes it with each other. That's a big move this game makes, is it basically uses as a lever real world analogs to fill in the blanks. And you can, I think that there's criticism you can even have about that move, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've talked about it vis-a-vis race and like kind of the things it is. It's really tempting. I think that it's hard to come up with a charitable read, because it does just feel like this is comedic relief.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like it's a setup and a joke. The accent and his ethnicity, and particularly because this is the only person with this kind of SoCal accent, right? That it just feels like a joke. It feels like a setup and a punchline. It feels like, wouldn't it be funny if?
Yeah. And it also like, I think that that's bad enough, but it also like, the thing is, when you're trying to use these analogs to make the story richer, the idea that the accent that Tiago is giving us is like being called the same word, that Mesk, as the Spaniards we met before that are evoking the Spanish Civil War, well, my brain is immediately going, these are two, so the cultural milieus here are so radically different, it makes no sense for anybody.
Yeah, the only connection between them is they speak the same language, and they speak the same language, or they might speak the same language. And the only connection between that is colonialism, right?
Yeah.
This is the kind of real world compression that you're talking about, right? And kind of importation of ideas. What it buys you is resonance with the real world. What it takes away from you is that when those resonances don't quite work or don't make sense at all,
the house of cards tumbles.
Absolutely. It's kind of what we were talking about last time with Zeolites too, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that like all the East Asians are kind of the same, right? Which is the kind of compression that's happening here. That kind of works in some ways, but also completely falls apart when you think about the real world racial resonances that has. That completely falls apart. And to say too, right, that there's a pretty clear difference. Let me back up and maybe say it more directly. The compression that is happening with Zeolite, and the compression that's happening with Mesk, and the compression that's happening with CMRN, right, which is taking very disparate, radically disparate cultures and then compressing them together, is I think different than what's happening with something like Europe, right? Whereas like these, like the Caribbean gets compressed into CMRN, and there's all kinds of different, obviously in the real Caribbean, lots of different things going on there. And in East Asia, right, between China, Korea, and Japan, radically different stuff going on there. And with Mesk, as we're talking about here, and what kind of got us going, is that Spain and Southern California are massively different cultures, right, in 1,000 different ways. And what is unfortunate to me here is that, in fact, European culture, quote unquote, European culture, gets a lot of decompression in some ways, right? The old world, right? Oranje gets to be this kind of Eastern European place. Königstein gets to be Central Europe. Martinez or Revachol gets to be the kind of French. So there's not where ethnicities and cultures and nationalities are being compressed in racialized ways across the world, right? Our real world versions are being compressed in this fictional world in very particular kind of ways. The same thing's not happening to European culture here.
So, like, can I give a let me be a bit of a devil's advocate and be like hyper generous here.
I think we should be hyper generous, but I think that like top down, there's a disjuncture here.
Could this game be doing this to mimic the way real world colonialism and racism works, which is basically like a racial or national Mercator projection, right? Where Europe gets really expanded, everything else gets really contracted, and in some ways that's kind of how racism works, is it creates a bunch of like really arbitrary lines on the fringe, on the outside, and so many rich distinctions, right, on the inside.
Sure. I mean, yes.
That is as generous as I can be, right?
I think
that the game is making commentary about that.
I think if it's doing that, then I think, again, most generous, I think that might be the intent, right? And I think actually, maybe even to double down on that, I think the argument being implicitly made here is that we often conflate Europeanness, especially in the United States. Europeanness is one thing when obviously it's also different cultures in different places, right? And and this game is creating alignments between like a French perspective and then a Central European perspective, and then is making the claim that Eastern Europe, right, is its own cultural identity in the same way that East Asia is a different cultural identity in the broadest strokes possible. I think the idea here is that Oranje is a different kind of thing, and the real world analog is a different kind of thing. I think that if whatever the intent is there could be more maneuvering of it. There could be more context. There could be more talking about that. the game wants the structure to do a lot of work sometimes and zero work in other times. And when it's, and the difference between those two axioms almost is,
and it
very
wants you to
perceptible.
pay the exact amount of attention that it wants you to pay. And it doesn't want you to. It doesn't want you to pay more attention when it's skating over it, and it doesn't want you to have fleeting attention when it wants to go into it.
100%.
It does require a lot of cooperation.
Exactly. And I think that if you start thinking about it across the board, things get really weird. Which is not to say that in the real world things aren't really weird. Obviously, things are really weird. And
I'm against it.
You hate it.
I hate it.
That's you tell me all the time. I hate it.
Yeah,
things are weird.
I almost regret Jill Stein winning the referendum to delay the election because I would love to just see that on the ballot so I could vote against it.
Yeah, you want that to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I think that is a long conversation to get us to the point of, which is just discomfort on our part between the idea of compressing Southern Californian culture into mess culture, or into Spanish culture, into this mesque form. Mm-hmm. It's weird. It feels weird. It feels like a joke. I think a lot about this video. I think it was a video that Paul Tamayo did. Who has guested on a secret Let's Play that is on the Range Touch channel.
You have to subscribe to know.
You have to subscribe to the Patreon to know. But Paul did I think it was a video about this game called Call Me Pedro, like a couple years ago. And at the beginning, Paul was just like, that name, like why is this Call Me Pedro? And the implicitly here being like, this is just a joke, like that the name Pedro and this Latino stamp on top is meant to be a joke. That's exactly how this voice feels to me. Mm-hmm. It feels like it is meant to be a punchline and not to be character building. And he's also like a construction worker.
Oh, I didn't get to that.
Yeah, so Thiago ends up becoming Crabman, right? He ends up being this spectral, shadowy figure in the rafters because he worked construction here sometime back. We don't really know. He worked construction in this church, and he became fascinated with this like silence in the ceiling, and he eventually gave up like all of his humanness to worship the thing in the ceiling, because the shoes that you can find here, I think implicitly, are his shoes.
Mm-hmm. And I think that they have the word banger in them.
Yeah.
Either that or another article of clothing. There's 2 articles of clothing you can find here that has like mesque. And one has mesque banger, which is obviously trying to like triangulate his accent and gangbanger. So it's like,
I didn't even put that together, but yeah, absolutely.
It's even harder to be charitable now, isn't it?
Yeah, and all the stuff too about the cartels. There's a lot of stuff going on here that around.
I don't get to the cartels. So I think I fail like a check to, or I don't have a passive to like get his backstory. Basically.
Oh, I didn't get anything with him for the cartels, but cartels are going to show up later in this episode. So
for you,
yep. Oh yeah, maybe not for you.
Okay. So yeah.
Anyways, you talk to him.
I talk to him, and he tries to bring me to sobriety. He does a little bit of the measurehead stuff, but maybe a little bit nicer about it.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even call it measurehead stuff. He just explicitly says to me, "Hey man, it seems like you have an alcohol problem, and you should think about that." And I'm telling you directly that you have an alcohol problem.
Did you think about it?
I tried to, but I couldn't. That was the weird thing. Oh no, I think that I got a thought thing for it, but I believe I finished the game before the thought thing finished. A thought cabinet thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you can get that 2 places. You can get it from Measurehead if you like agree with Measurehead, and you can get it from him. And that's like getting your sobriety back, I suppose. But yeah, he just lives here. He's almost a non-human figure, and I think that this silence in the church is kind of, he triangulates with Dolores Day, who the church is, who's kind of like the figure of this church. I guess kind of the Christ-like figure, right?
Well,
I think she's related to it with him. It seems bound together.
He seems to say that.
Mm-hmm.
We have two contested theories about what is happening in this church.
Mm-hmm.
One is
religious.
One is explicitly religious, and he says, "Look, there's like a silence in the universe up in the top of this thing, and I feed on it. I circle it in the ceiling, and I feed on it. And one day, hopefully, I will be able to like transcend enough to like go inside of it and like really sample it." And he keeps calling it like the mother, and we're gonna hear a competing narrative about this in just a minute. But yeah, for him, it is religious, and he is associating it with this big ass mural on the wall of Dolores Day, who is kind of like a little bit of like Mother Mary for the moral intern, the moralists. She's kind of their Christ figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's as if, yeah, you're exactly right. So yeah, I basically talked to him and I asked him, hey, would you be okay if these kids started a club in here and did the electronic music? They have like a specific name for it. It starts with an A.
Anodic.
Anodic. Mm-hmm. And he says, yeah, that's fine. No problem.
Yeah.
And there's also on the other side of the church near the portrait, you're able to interact with the stained glass portrait that kind of dominates the church. And I am compelled to kneel before it. It's an option I choose. In the moment, I just chose one, and I kneeled and closed my eyes. And I did see that Kim crossed himself as we kind of stood before it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any interactions with the portrait? No.
I don't even think I could click on it.
Oh, interesting. I went to the machine, and there was a machine there that was very similar to the machine we saw in the doomed commercial district. It's that kind of radio internet thing.
Mm-hmm. It is explicitly a radio computer.
Yeah, it's a radio computer that can access this universe's version of the internet, which is just kind of like these radio waves. And I call it up, and the operator is there because in order to like enter a password on this network, everything's mediated through human beings that you can read a password to. I don't know the password, but I go back to Tiago and I ask him if he's ever heard the password, and he says yes, it's life after death, I think, or death after life. You remember?
Yeah, it's like afterlife, death.
Afterlife, death.
I think that's it. Yeah.
And I'm able to go back and I can read like some logs of a person who is staying here, and it seems like they are like probing this anomaly. And as I'm getting towards the end of the logs, Suna walks in. I believe that's their name.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And this person has what in the real world I would probably peg as like a Scandinavian accent, maybe a Swedish accent. And Suna is like all business and is like, hey, you're messing with my computer.
Yeah, I think she's
stop doing that.
I think she's Finnish.
Mm-hmm. That tracks. And yeah, we're able to like ask her some questions. She's a little standoffish at first, but we're able to ask some questions about kind of what's going on here. And I also ask her, hey, would you be okay with these kids moving in? They want to start a dance club. And she's like, they don't want to start a dance club. And I was like, well, of course they do. That's what they said they want to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, I trust them. You need to go back and you need to have a chat with them, see what's really going on. So I go back and is that more or less how your conversation went with her?
Yeah. Well, so we were able to get a little bit more information. I'm going to shortcut some of this because a lot of this is just going back and forth.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about what they're actually trying to do. But the upshot of Suna's entire conversation is that her deal is that she was, I believe, a programmer for
Fortress Accident.
Yeah, Fortress Accident, which is the video game. Yeah, yes. Yeah, the Radio Mamorpaga company And so she wants us to go back to that company to get the off-site backup for the game that was not actually off-site, unfortunately, because she explains to us, if you talk to her enough, you find out that the reason that Fortress Accident failed is that they were trying to make a $4 million game with $400,000. That was the number one problem. And the big issue behind it is they had a feature called the Valley of 100,000 heads that had 100,000 different celebrity voice actors that could be combined with 100,000 bodies, and that each individual one of those combinations would create different characters that you could talk to. And so those would all be actually voiced and then accessed through this radio system. So it's literally impossible. It's this, and the computer can literally spit out to you the number of combinations of bodies that will produce, and it takes 3 full minutes to spit out the numbers. It's really funny to click on. I'll include the video here. My description is going to take less time than it takes to do this, but
to scroll through, yeah.
And she gives you her pry bar, which is very convenient and useful, and it allows us, remember we talked all the way back about that ice cream maker? Mm-hmm. It allows us to go and break open the ice cream maker and get this off-site backup.
Yep.
But the reason she wants it is that the day that they were working to, I think, upload their, or install or something. It's kind of unclear how the computation here works, but they were transmitting their data to repeater stations for this video game, or this radio game, and it ran into something that basically ate it. It deleted all the data.
Yeah, all the information got zapped, and it was no more. It was being transmitted. Everything was fine. And then it disappeared, which is not something that should happen.
No.
It should go somewhere.
Exactly. And so she wants the offsite backup, which is also broken in some way, but so she can compare the data for ... It doesn't really matter. It's also not very clear to me, even though I read this whole conversation.
Sure.
She attributes this whole thing to a thing she calls the swallow, which is in this church. And she says basically what happened is that these radio waves ran into this thing called the swallow and it ate them.
Yeah.
And she says it's a hole in the universe that just eats things up. It's like she says it's a 2 millimeter hole. This is the thing that Tiago is worshipping / is being transformed by. So there is a hole in the universe in this church that is sucking things into it indiscriminately.
And namely, according to Suna, this is a hole that can be measured, because she's saying it's 2 millimeters, and tested and probed.
And listened to.
These are the two competing understandings of the phenomena.
Exactly.
Right? The religious and the scientific.
Exactly. And ultimately they agree on it in some ways, right? For Suna, it's a big problem. For Tiago, it's awesome, I guess. Even though it is eating his humanity. It might not be good for him in a general sense. I don't know. I don't know what his life was like before.
But yeah, long story short, there is a way, in order to advance this question, you mentioned at the beginning that this is super linear when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
A couple of things have to happen. And for me, I think that the bottlenecks are, the bottleneck is that there comes a point where you get the filament and she triangulates the exact position. And the idea is you listen to it to kind of discern what it is. And she puts the headphones on, is I can't hear anything. There is a white check for you to be able to listen to it. And it is off of your perception score. And if you pass that, you realize, the issue is your audio equipment is not amplified enough in order to hear it. So that is the one bottleneck to you I think you just straight up have to pass that perception check to get through this. Is there another way to do it?
Let me give you something that's even more of a bummer than this.
Okay.
I get to this check and I fail it because I don't have good motorics. I can't hear very well. Okay, fine. I can still ascertain that there's something wrong and maybe I could improve it. Not with my perception, but mechanically here.
Okay.
something's wrong with the headphones or whatever. I can go and talk to the music dudes, and I can say, hey, there's something going on here. What do you think? And they can say, oh yeah, she can use our amplifier to boost the sound.
Oh.
I can't tell her that without passing the perception check. So I can do their side and have a way of solving it, but I cannot communicate that information to her without passing this check.
This feels like an oversight. It feels like they engineered a backdoor and they just forgot to add a handle to it.
Yeah, it feels like a flag problem here. Maybe this will get fixed in the Final Cut edition or whatever it's called, the new edition that will probably be out by the time people are hearing this. So maybe this is fixed. But so I am hard locked here in the sense of my perception is 1, so I just can't. It's a hard check, and so I just can't do it. So I actually saved my game. I put my point in, saved again, and then tried to save scum it a couple times just to get through it. And I had ended up having to do this for a couple things here at the end, where I just didn't have enough experience points and enough like open quests to go and get more levels. I think shifting things around in my thought catalog so much has actually really hurt me in this playthrough, because I didn't have any issues with spare skill points in the first time I played this game.
But that's because you disregarded the thought cabinet altogether.
Basically, yeah. Only used it once or twice. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is as far as I got. That's all to say.
Oh, wow. You didn't get further.
Nope. This is it.
Okay. Well, it turns out the kids are actually, while their long-term goal is to make a club, their short-term goal is to just produce drugs out of this church.
Yeah, they want to make speed.
Which I'm down with. I'm like, yeah, all the power to you. And I tell, I think we do have to haggle down in some way with Suna. Like, she's really not down with the making drugs, and I can't remember how it happens exactly. But eventually, like, the upshot is you get them to loan the equipment. They loan the equipment to Suna, and she gets ready for the test, and, Egghead's, playing some music, and everybody's chilling out, and eventually you can plug in Suna's equipment to their audio equipment, to their speakers, and all hell breaks loose. The whole church starts, like, shaking, like, the silence is being magnified, and it's this horrific, like, hell-opening sound. And I am just shouting as, like, it's beautiful, keep going. And, like, Suna's like, I think that reality is about to tear itself apart. And I say, let's do it. Let's go. Let's tear it apart. And at the last, and I was very interested to see what would happen in the last thing, where the last kind of dialogue option you have is you can tell Egghead, whatever you do, don't disconnect it, or Egghead, disconnect it now. And in my last playthrough, I told him, disconnect it now. So in this playthrough, I said, whatever you do, Egghead, do not disconnect it. He disconnects it no matter what. Yeah. He disconnects it no matter what. Suna records it and gets a reading and gets, like, enough data that she can send it out and, like, have it analyzed and, like, more fully understand what this phenomena is. And the quest kind of ends. You do have the opportunity to name their club, and you have a couple of options, and I think that one of them is the title of the game, Disco Elysium, which they liked. And the other, I think, is the working title of the game early, which is like The Furies Are Here or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of like an early name of the game. But
yeah, it was the name for like 2 or 3 years. This game's been in development a long time.
Yeah. This was like 10 years, right?
I know Kurvitz was working on all the stuff for at least that long, like the lore. I mean, he wrote a novel that's set in this universe. I don't think it's in English though. Otherwise, I would read it. If it is in English, please someone let me know. But I don't think it is.
In any case, I named the club, and I really regret it. But I think that I could have danced there.
Oh.
But I didn't. I went and did something else, and by the time I came back, it was too late. Because now that we have completed this quest,
Mm-hmm.
the next thing we did is basically we actually do something in the main quest. In accordance with my thesis at the beginning of the episode, we haven't done anything yet, and this is kind of the inflection point where stuff starts happening, and it starts happening real fast.
Mm-hmm.
So in any case, how about that wall?
Only, let me say one thing
Sure.
at the end. You were all about them making speed.
Yeah.
I told them, hey, I'm going to arrest you if you, or actually, I'm going to kick you out and make you leave
Oh, wow.
if you make speed. But if you really want to have a club, you can do that, but you can't make speed. And Egghead was super excited about that.
Oh.
Basically, the implication is that he stopped yelling and he actually like said some real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a maybe visual calculus check that he's almost my age. And so the implication being that that in the same way that this case is kind of an opportunity for Harry Dubois to kind of get his shit together and, kind of come back together out of whatever, kind of breaking point that he was at.
Get some insight.
Yeah. That this club actually being real and not just being kind of a front for making methamphetamine. That similar thing might happen for Egghead. But I couldn't do it, so who cares? So yeah, that wall.
Yeah, the wall. The plot wall?
Yeah,
I don't know how you want to call this.
Yeah, it's the plot wall. So this game, you can look all over for Ruby. Sure. You can look up and down the universe. I talked to everyone I could talk to about it. Mm-hmm. So I talked to Titus, I talked to the washerwoman, I talked to all these people, and basically it's like, yes, she's been here. I actually went back and found that bullet, by the way, that you were telling me about.
Oh, yeah.
So we're looking for all this kind of stuff, and no dice, and you can't get in anywhere. So, but the big sign that Trant is looking at with his son Michael, it's this big Feld electronic sign, and you can look at it, and there's a shivers check you can make.
Yes.
That's very hard.
Very hard.
This shivers check is like, it requires a 20, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get, for every... okay, well, actually, sorry, let me back up. It's a big shivers check. It's very clear that it's difficult. And if you fail it, the game says, you know what, you're just kind of grasping at straws. You need to do as many quests as you can in this part of the city in order to figure out what to do next. So basically, and Kim Kitsuragi tells you that. So basically the game's like, hey, just go do a bunch of side content and then come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
For each, there's like 6 or 7 different things you can do. And for each of those, it will increase your shiver score by +2 on this check. So basically the game is saying, go and complete the game, and then come back here, and then you can go and find Ruby.
Yes.
It's annoying as shit. I got so last night I was playing this, and we had talked about, beforehand, behind the curtain a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
We are recording these last 3 episodes all in one whack for the last thing. And so I spent all of my Saturday evening last night from 8:30 or so, 9 o'clock maybe. Nah, maybe a little bit. Maybe like 9:30. 9:30 until 1:30 a.m. playing this game. Yeah. And that was mostly just playing the game like normal. And I spent a lot of time walking around trying to figure out if I could complete that church quest, let me tell you. Like a lot of time. And so I get to the shivers check, and I've already gone through all this stuff of being like, oh shit, I don't have enough side content to do to increase my perception score. What am I going to do? So I get to the shivers check, and I'm really out of luck because it's the same problem. I have a white check. It's failed. All of the quests that I haven't completed that would help with the shivers check are gated by white checks that I can't reattempt.
Oh, no.
So I sent you a message at like 1:30 in the morning.
I think
1
I'm
a.m.
soft-locked, basically. I think I cannot do the last episode because...
Yes. And so I was like, I think that I might not be able to complete the game. And then I go like looking on the internet, and I was like, there's got to be a way around this. And then I'm finding that this is a common problem. Like there was all kinds of like threads on the internet of people trying to figure out what the hell to do here.
You straight up must succeed this check twice. in order to beat the game.
No, you only have to do it one time.
At least for me. I found this wall 2 episodes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Went up to it, had a 72% chance to succeeded. Then had another 72% chance to succeeded, and I was like, Kim, Ruby's here. Didn't do a single side quest, didn't have any pluses to it.
That's very funny.
I could have beaten this game 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, so my only option here, I was like, okay, I will spend 10 minutes trying to do this, and if not, we will postpone. I mean, I sent you the Discord message. I was like, look, we might not be able to record this last episode. Like, I might end up having to like reload an earlier save or something and like try to complete the game.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so I had one floating skill point.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's the one that I didn't use to do the church quest, and I had like a 17% chance, and I increased that because I found a scarf that gives me +1 to shivers, and then I like got in the wiki. I was like, what clothing items can I like go around and collect to increase my shivers? There's just one, by the way, so I went and found it. So I went and got that and I put it on. It gave me like a 20% chance. So I was like, I'll spend 10 minutes doing this and then I'm going to bed no matter what. And so I like saved my game and save scummed it 2 or 3 times and then got it on like the 5th try.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, 20% I guess is, 1 in 5. So it did work out. But this is a bad feeling. It's a bad feeling to not be able to complete multiple quests in this game and then to get to something that is the only check that matters. It's the only check that matters in the whole game, like mechanically, and not be able to do anything about it. It is a massive, I think it's a problem with the game.
It's wild because there are other checks in the game that we're going to get to. At the end of this episode, I think, and next episode, that you can fail and the game keeps chugging, right? It like takes that failure into account and it's like, okay, well, this is what happens. And there are plenty of checks like this in side quests of like, if you want to complete the side quest, you need to get this white check. This is the only moment in the game, I think, where the game just locks up.
Yeah.
Right? I guess maybe getting the hanged man's corpse down, like that's just, okay, you got to get the check, right?
Yeah, but that's so early in the difference is that's so early in the game that you have so many opportunities to retry that. Like, you know, and there's actually a bunch of different strategies, right? There's the shooting it down stuff. There's like getting Kim to shoot it down versus you shooting it down. There's the conversations that you can have to boost it, right? Like there's a lot of different methods.
Might even be that you can eventually talk to Claire, like if you run out. I don't know if he helps you.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But no, that's a huge bummer. And it is a huge difference between me that just goes up to a building and is like, she's in here.
Yeah, and the first time that I played the game, I had a very similar situation to you or experience where I'd put several points into shivers because it's cool. In the same way that my first playthrough, I put a bunch of points into Inland Empire because it's cool. Super cool. Yeah. And ultimately that ended up benefiting me a lot at the end of the game too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. Like it enraged me. I like felt emotions I've never felt before of disappointment and unhappiness. And I guess
worse
if it is
than that one time on the PvP Minecraft server where they took all your diamonds. We had our little hidden area and just somebody came down and just got us.
Yeah, that's oh yeah, remember that was like the first days of Minecraft having servers. Wow, what a time. Yeah, that was a bummer. But no, this is way worse than that.
Wow.
Literally the thought that went through my mind is this is my Torment Tides of Numenera. It was so distressing after spending so much time and being up so late. And also I'd spent all day like working outside. So I was really tired.
Yeah.
I was like at just like purely the end of my like emotional and mental rope as far as like my capability to deal with this. And I was literally like, I don't know if I care about playing this game anymore. You know, which obviously is not an indictment of this game, but I do think this is a huge problem that the whole game comes into this pinch point that if everything is firing all cylinders, probably works awesome, but if things are not firing on all cylinders, is a huge bummer.
No, there's no I think that there's no reason for the game. Like, there needs to be a critical number of side quests, and once you get to, okay, you've done 4 side quests, it needs to be an auto-succeed.
Yeah, because the other other quests, obviously I looked it up to see what I could do here. One of the quests is to talk on the phone enough times, because there's the telephone that everyone's telling you about that's on the coast. You can go use it several times in a row. Lo and behold, there is an interfacing check there. White check, failed it, couldn't reattempt it. You can hear the end of Lena's story, which you were able to do, right? The end of her story being that she's not sure if the phasmid is real or not. Couldn't get there. A white check that I couldn't reattempt. So there were several that I just couldn't do anything about, and it was a huge bummer. I will say this: by the time that I want to have the nice caveat. By the time that people are able to listen to this, I think the final version of this game will be out. I cannot imagine a world in which this is not reconfigured or altered in some way, or at least expanded in some way by the additional quests that are in that final cut. I can't think of this. I can't think of a revision of this game existing that does not address this in some way.
Because the white check also gets unlocked every time you do one of the modifier quests, right?
Ooh, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I didn't have the opportunity to test that, so
yeah,
I would hope. I don't know, but we got through it.
We got through it, and once I knew that she was inside, I teleported up.
I also teleported up. Yeah, and that's actually so. I was actually really glad. So what I did is I got that check, and no joke, I just saved my game and went to bed. I was like, I'm not going to keep playing this. I'm just going to turn it off, and I'll wake up in the morning before we record, and then I'll start fresh, and I'll feel better about it.
Sure.
And I'll be honest with you, teleporting as my first action really did improve my demeanor. It made me feel a lot more positive about the game because it's a huge bummer followed by something that's very, very funny.
Yeah. So you basically say, Kim, I'm going to teleport up there. And Kim's like, you can't do that. And the man whose name I forgot,
Trant.
Oh my God. Trant.
Trant like, Hiddleston.
Trant's like talking to his son. And he's like, yeah, teleportation is, for the most part, thought to be impossible.
He's a good sport about it. Trant's great.
And you just close your eyes, and the screen goes dark, and zip, zap, zoom is like the text you see, and then you're up there.
Yeah, and I think during that you could be like, Kim, I'm doing it. I'm teleporting.
And Kim, just after you get up there, Kim says, for the record, you just closed your eyes and then jumped up there.
Yeah. Oh no, it's actually Trant in the middle of that who says, oh my God, he's doing it.
Yes, it does. He does. Yeah, it's good. It's a funny little moment, and you get up to the building, and basically you can go down and you find an entrance to like allow Kim to become reunited with you. I don't know what happens if you try to like go deeper into the complex without Kim.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but we get Kim. There's a little hideout down here. Looks like there was some revolutionary activity in here at some point. But long story short, you get to a point in this cave system underneath Feld Electronics, or Feld Electrical, that Kim says, hey, if we take another step here, it's kind of like the path of no return. And this is the game telling you are about to initiate the end of the game.
That's really funny. Kim didn't tell me that. I got a like an Inland Empire warning, and I was able to warn Kim. I was like, "There's danger here, Kim."
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, Kim told me, "Hey, you need to watch out." We turn the corner and we get Death Raid.
It's like an LRAD.
Like an LRAD, like a crowd control sonic device.
Yeah, that is an LRAD.
Oh, okay. Well, I just know them by my informal experience, and not by and not by any kind of theoretical orientation.
But yeah, you're getting hit by that, and Ruby's there.
Ruby's there,
and
she's controlling the device.
Yeah, and she just starts telling you some stuff.
She does the big villain stuff.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't find any of it out because I just do a red check to knock the thing over.
So, yeah. Here's something weird. I I hear her whole villain monologue. It's not, I guess, not a villain monologue because she kind of isn't really a villain, but she explains the whole shit to me.
Yeah, she explains the technology, and she also explains, like, I guess she doesn't really explain, but she references the Pale, which is like, I don't have a full understanding of it because my character doesn't understand it.
Well, so the Pale is this is my best understanding of the Pale. I think we've talked about this a little bit before, and I'll try to say this briefly. So there are isolas in the world, right, which are like these continents, and in between them is the Pale, like uncharted space. And this ray that she has is, and it's like destructive, it's annihilative. And this ray that she has is the kind of thing that was used by like the explorers, quote unquote, right? To project, to turn undifferentiated mass space, right? Just like this non-existence into striated, mapped space. So it's like a thing that projects in front of you and turns nothingness into something that can be navigated and moved through.
It converts the fog of war.
Basically, it converts the fog of war into navigable space, right? And so that's what's used for navigational mechanisms, right? And she is using these frequencies, basically it's these transformative frequencies to just blast you with them and turning your, undifferentiated or your chaotic human nature in rigidifying it. Right, so that's like how it works, right? So it's not like a NORAD in the sense that it's not overwhelming you auditorily or whatever, right?
It's overwhelming you on like a metaphysical level.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
it's probably a red warning sticker on there.
It's not good. Oh, you're not supposed to build them. I think it's pretty clear that she's got this on her own and she's been building it and getting ready. And we know she's been working on these things because we found that in her in her lorry that she abandoned. But yeah, I also did that. I had a red check with a very low chance of success, and I was like, I'm going to smash this goddamn machine.
I had a really high chance of success, and I smashed the machine.
Yeah.
So did you succeed too?
Oh yeah, hell yeah, I did.
And so I smashed it, and she puts a gun to her head. I have a check to try to talk her down. I fail. She shoots herself. I find no information from Ruby alive.
Yeah, I have a similar experience.
Okay.
Because exact same thing happens. Turns the gun on herself. I say, I get a bunch of stuff. So rhetoric, drama.
Oh my God, I had nothing. I had one red check. I didn't have any other tools to like try to talk her down.
No, these are like automatic successes. And they're like giving me advice. They're like, here's what you need to do. And it basically says, look, you need to talk her down, which of course, like, thanks brain, helpful. And so I'm able to say, hold on just a minute now. And I get to that point. And I basically have two options. I can say, look, put the gun down and go. Just leave. Whatever. Or I could say, look, put the gun down. We have to take you in. Like, that's our only option. I've been playing a super straight-laced cop.
Yeah.
And so I kind of agonized over it a little bit because I was like, this is going to be difficult. In the sense of like, I don't think this is objectively the right thing, but I think she will just run away. And that's not a good outcome here.
For a cop.
For a cop, yeah. I mean, maybe like in a general sense, but for the way that I've been playing this game and,
it's not an acceptable outcome for the straight-laced cop.
Exactly. It's not an acceptable outcome. And so I said, we got to take you in. And yeah, and then she shot herself.
Okay.
So I also didn't learn anything, but I got there in a different way. Yeah,
and you can get her journal, and from this little chamber, you decide you and Kim kind of preserve her body in her tent to get picked up later, and you read the journal, and I gather from the journal that she was not responsible for the death. That while she claimed responsibility for staging it, she got frightened because she knew staging it was a crime. She felt like she was a natural like suspect, so that's why she went in hiding. So after I read the journal, I kind of came to the conclusion, nah, it wasn't Ruby.
Yeah.
More or less where you landed.
I didn't really have a strong feeling about it one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't running under the assumption that she was... I was never running under the assumption that she was like the person who had to have done it.
See, I think that's different. So when the way I'm role playing the character and just like operating, obviously I beat the game before, but I really am trying to put my head in where my Harry's brain is, and where I'm coming from, Ruby was definitely the chief suspect.
Well, so I never unlocked the back door to the Whirling in Rags and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like my story where I told Titus about why Ruby is, our best suspect is not even very convincing. Just to be frank, it was me being like, well, there's a crane outdoors that she could have gotten up there. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, who else could have done it?
Your rhetoric got you there. But
yes.
For me, I have motive too, because I knew Ruby was romantically interested in Klaasja. There's a peephole back in that wall in the crawl space of the Whirling in Rags. And the footprints of the dragging foot are back there, and it's like everything felt like it was cohering together. So I was like, man, I've got motive. I've got I don't have a murder weapon, but I do have like her kind of evidence of her being at the scene of the crime, and she covered it up. It all felt pretty airtight, but the journal really put a damper on that for me.
Yeah, all I had was motive, because I also had the kind of crush stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had motive, and then the cover up, and then the fleeing, which is just circumstance. That's not. There's no direct evidence there, right? And so for me, when I was playing through the conversation, it felt a lot more like I was selling Titus a story, the best possible story I could,
but not necessarily one that you believed in.
Exactly, because it's just not very convincing where I had it. But she does that, and we're kind of left without a suspect again.
And now something's happened.
What?
Something's happened in the game.
What?
We
wait, hold on. Are we in the end game now?
I'm holding up one finger. My cloak is billowing.
Uh-oh.
I'm thinking about going to meditate in Antarctica because I just don't want to have to deal with the Hulk.
All of your text messages appear on screen all the time. You've got some sort of mind palace flipping around. You're like Harry Dubois. Harrier. Some sort of warrior.
I'm a Star Trek villain.
There you go. But so that all happened.
Yeah, that all happened, and now something has happened. This is the inflection point of the game, which is the end. It's this game is. I know we're at the end of the episode here, but I just want to make the observation, and I'm sure we're going to talk more in our 10th episode, kind of after we finish the game, of big thoughts, but bizarre pacing. Just playing it again and just experiencing it. I think it's very much speaks to you talk about the novelty of the game and how different it is the first time you're playing it. And maybe that's the case when you reread a mystery novel. I don't know. I don't do that. I don't read them the initial time, so I never have the opportunity to reread them.
You really nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for you.
Yeah. There never was a mystery. I never have to solve them.
That's unfortunately, as I was reading around trying to figure out about the stupid shivers check, I also ran upon a lot of threads of people saying this is kind of the beginning of the end, in the sense of the game does not cash the check that it writes at the beginning for many people. And I don't know if I think that. I actually think maybe the pacing is a little bit better on the other side here. I don't know. We'll talk about it. But I think that this part, the Ruby to the part that we're going to talk about at the beginning of next episode, they're the worst parts for me. But then the kind of next part, I think, is really good. So anyway, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it
in the next episode. Range Touch on Twitter, at Range Touch, if you want to do that. If you want to listen to this as a podcast rather than watching it here on YouTube, you can do that down in the description below. You can find a link to a podcast feed. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/rangetouch. The link is down below there. Every bit of patronage helps, every dollar. If you like the show and you like listening to it and you want us to keep making things like this for the next however long, consider supporting us for as little as $1 a month. It takes you very little time to sign up, and it helps us out a lot. So think about doing that, and we will see you on the next episode.
Definitely. Ciao.